Okay, my name is Jim Dimmick, and I'll be doing the rebuttal for this debate. This is a 4-minute rebuttal, and we should begin time right now. Okay, to begin with, it's really interesting that he starts off by talking to you about Timothy McVeigh. I think this is a fabulous opening narrative because it illustrates actually my point and not his point. Timothy McVeigh killed 168 people, right? But his accomplice, who's also convicted by the Oklahoma Supreme Court of the same crime of killing 167 of those 168 people, he's serving life in a penitentiary. He didn't get the death penalty. So why does McVeigh commit the crime and go to jail, or excuse me, go to the death penalty, but his partner, Terry Nichols, doesn't get the death penalty at all, right? That's the whole point, is that it is like almost random who ends up with a death penalty in this country and who doesn't. You can go ahead and turn that example. But let's go down and talk about the grounds of the debate, the 1 and 2 point, U.S. and the death penalty. He raised some arguments here, but he didn't really say anything about them at all, so you can go ahead and pull them across. These are the standards. We're talking about the United States, we're talking about the real world. Okay, now let's go down to the criteria debate on the affirmative. This is going to be really important. His first argument is that my evidence is old, that it's from 1972. But I would argue that this is irrelevant at all. And also, he quotes Kant in his primary contention, and Kant goes back to, what, the 1700s, the late 1600s? So if we're going to make data an issue, I would say you have to throw out almost his entire case, right? So second, on the Furman decision, I wasn't quoting Furman, I was quoting Justice Douglas, right? He's one of the most esteemed Supreme Court justices in the country. Now, you're going to weigh that against his professor of government, some obscure guy that we've never even heard of, on his side of the flow, and you're going to go with Douglas, because Douglas is clearly the more esteemed character. The fact that he has Barron in 2006, this is some blog writer, we're going to have problems with him later. His third point is that the Furman was overturned by Gregg. Yeah, but the basis of the decision in Gregg remains sound. Like, the Supreme Court didn't say all of a sudden that you can have arbitrary and capricious punishment, and that's going to be okay. Arbitrary and capricious punishment is still always going to be unconstitutional. That was maintained by the Furman decision. Off his fourth point, that the eighth is about proportionality, not about non-discrimination. Yeah, I'm going to admit that proportionality is important, but you've got to have both proportionality and non-discrimination. If it's proportional, I agree. If it's not proportional, we should throw it out. But also, if it's discriminatory, then you also have to throw it out. So either way, if it's not proportional or not discriminatory, or if it's not proportional or discriminatory, you've got to throw it out. And so that's going to remain sound. Let's go on to contention one. He groups my first contention and counters with the Cornell study. I would argue, one, that the GAO is a meta-analysis. That means it looked at a lot of studies. He only cites one. Secondly, I have more evidence. This is from Davis in 2011, so notice I also get the post date here, Journal of Peace and Change, page 476. They easily show that where the death penalty was used most heavily, and they well indicate that being male, black, poor, and younger than the general population, particularly ages 15 through 34, marked the most of those who suffered execution. So you're going to pull that evidence across on the point anyway. But even more importantly, here is that he totally misanalyzes the point. It wasn't that the defendant, that the crime was sent to the death penalty of the defendant, or the victim, or if the defendant was a minority. The crime goes to the death penalty if the victim is white, and that's the whole point. Is that if you have to buy his analysis, you have to say that a person who kills a white person in this country deserves to die, and a person who kills somebody who's of color, particularly a black person in this country, does not deserve to die. And that's clearly a violation of proportionality. It's clearly a violation of the discriminatory standards. You're going to pull that across. Off my second contention, his real only concern is that he doesn't seem to know what extra legal means, and he's got a problem with the state of Missouri. I would argue, one, that extra legal is where the discrimination is actually taking place, right? It's taking place in the plea bargain stuff that happens before trial. Second, I only need to prove that there's one place in the base of discrimination. If you kill a person in Kansas City, Missouri, you should be just as likely to go to the death penalty as you are in Kansas City, Kansas. Third, the evidence is very clear, it extends beyond Kansas. Let's go to contention two. Okay, not all lawyers. He's talking here about lawyers and stuff like that. But the point is that lawyers don't show up until the death penalty is applied on the table, right? Like, who gets charged with capital crime in the first place? That's my second point. That's the issue. That's the lens of evidence of 2005. And discrimination is plain and simple, right? Okay, they're killing people who kill black people are much less likely to go to the death penalty than people who kill white people, right? Let's go to his argument right here. Death is the only fitting punishment. That may have been true in Kant's day, but it's cruel and unusual punishment are evolving standard. I would go back to the Furman decision 1972 that established that. Off his second contention, his deterrence is absolutely contra Kant, right? Like, Kant hated deterrence. Kant was opposed to it. Also, we have lots and lots of studies that say absolutely the opposite in this debate, right? Let's go to the final summary. I've got 5 seconds. The affirmative criteria is better. We have better evidence. We have more evidence. We have the clear. The Z rule is non-discrimination. Written proof. I didn't get through those things, even though I have them on the flow. So I apologize for that. But the point is that I think I pretty clearly won.